Hello, magnetic queens, and welcome to the Toned and Transformed podcast, the place where we beautifully blend together fitness and faith so you can get your dream feminine, toned, good looking curves in a bikini and grow on your faith journey with Jesus, which gives you ultimate peace, joy, happiness, and a great self esteem. So, I am really excited for today's topic. This is a topic I've been wanting to do for so long, ever since I started my podcast, which in the beginning was only about fitness. And I'm so happy that I didn't do it before because now it just really aligns with the faith part. It really aligns with God's design. So it has not been the time in the past to record this episode. The time is now. And if you've watched my last episode from last week, you know what I'm talking about today. And last episode, we've talked about how to honor God with your body. And I gave you different ways on how you can and should actually honor God with your body. And the last point I touched on, which is today's topic, is embracing your God-given feminine cycle. We're gonna talk all about your female cycle and honoring your body in God's design. And this topic is so incredibly important to me and is important to actually every woman because this, I promise you, if you do the things that I tell you in this episode, it will make your life so much easier. You will be so much happier. You will have so much more energy, and getting and staying in shape will be so incredibly easy if you just know how to work with your body instead of against your body. And this episode is for sure one to take notes because you are gonna profit a lot from that. So if you listen and you're in the train, you can listen to it, but I would recommend you to re-listen to it and really take notes because this information is a manual. It's such a manual and so incredibly valuable. So I want to start off by telling you that the reason that we often as women struggle so much to lose weight, struggle so much with our energy, and we are grumpy on some times in our cycle, the reason for that is that we nowadays are living so against our nature and we're not even aware of it. And this is what makes life so much harder for us. So in this episode, I am gonna give you a mini tutorial on how to have more energy, to live happier, and to embrace your feminine cycle because this is how God actually created us. God designed us women with a unique hormonal cycle, and this cycle is around 28 days plus minus. And this is the very opposite to men who also have a cycle because everything in nature is in cycles. But a man has a 24-hour hormonal cycle. So compare those two. This is something totally different. So the energy of man goes up and down in a cycle of 24 hours. But our energy goes up and down in a cycle of 28 days. So I really want you to keep this in mind. And for the men, they start off the day with lots of energy, then it slowly decreases, and around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's like the lowest. And which time do people get off from work? Exactly at this time. So the man can go home and relax, and then in the evening, it increases a little bit again. And I know so many men who they cannot go to the gym, for example, right after they worked they have to go home, they have to eat, they have to rest, and then they have energy to go to the gym, because they are living according to their cycle subconsciously, because our society is built all around the male cycle but not around the female cycle. So that's the first thing I want to mention. And this is not a mistake. God created us like this with intention. This is the divine design that God created us for as life givers and nurturers. That's why I always say He created men and women with a different purpose. Women are not the same as men. Our cycle itself says it. Our Creator had something in mind. So us wanting to be like men, like this society nowadays is telling us, this is what is making us sad and what is making us feel depressed and being unhappy as women. So instead of being frustrated about your female cycle and your fluctuating energy levels, I want you to embrace it and work with it, because your cycle is actually a superpower if you know how to use it. I'm talking from experience. Years before, I used to hate my cycle. I hated my period. I hated the ups and downs of the energy, and I was just not. I was not having it. I just didn't like the fact that I have a female cycle, and everything shifted when I visited a seminar, a workshop on the female cycle, where I learned how to train, how to eat, and how to live according to my cycle. And this was a complete game changer at first for my fitness journey, and then also for all other aspects in my life. Ever since I learned how to work with my cycle, it has never been easier to keep myself in shape without any effort. This was just wow for me. This was just an eye-opener and a game changer, and I want to teach you this so you can apply it and you can see what a game changer that is. But first, I want to talk about the biblical perspective on the cycles in the nature and of the rhythms of the nature, because God designed us and designed His entire creation in cycles. Everything runs in cycles. There's season, there's winter, there's summer, there's spring, there's fall, and everything in this nature just lives in cycles. And also during the day, there's also the day and night, and this is in cycles. Even like the sea, first it's stronger and then it's less strong. So yeah, first it's less strong, the waves of the sea, and then it's stronger. This all runs in cycle, and this is also stated in the Bible in Ecclesiastes 3:1, and it says, "For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven." We're all under heaven, and for everything there is a season in life. This is just the way that God intended it to be and that God created it to be. So we should honor God by living according to our cycles, by living how He created us. Because whether you like it or not, whether you think there is a God or not, you have a cycle. You have a female cycle, and your hormones are working alongside that cycle, and you can choose to ignore your cycle like I did for years. But this will only result in you feeling energyless, feeling unhappy, and having a very, very hard time keeping your shape and keeping your health as well. This can even lead to burnout. So I would recommend you to accept the fact that you have a cycle and to start working with it. Because nowadays, or in today's society, with women, we always want to function. We don't want to live according to our nature, and we think, now I have to function, now I have to be there, and now I have to do this and this and this meeting. And yes, sometimes we cannot avoid like having stressful times. But in so many situations, it's just a choice, and we choose to fill our calendars with things when in reality we could really take some time for ourselves when we especially need it. And in the seminar that I went to that was about the female cycle, the teacher said um, in the fall, the trees they lose their leaves, and in the winter they have no leaves. They recover, and in spring they get their leaves again, and they start to flourish. And the tree is not saying, "I am gonna keep all my leaves for the winter because I have to function." No, it surrenders to the nature and it lets go of the leaves, and in summer, it flourishes again. There is a season for everything. But we, because we have a brain and because we can control things, we want to control everything and we want to control our nature. And then we are forcing ourselves to function even though our body tells us it's time to rest. And this is just not right. So, rant over. This is just what I really need you to think about. We are not little men. We women are not little men. And the thing is, when I learned about fitness, about how to program your training and nutrition and everything, initially I didn't learn anything about that because this is not taught. And also in medicine, when they test medicine on men, not on women, because on women there's the risk that they can be pregnant. So all studies regarding medicine, regarding fitness, and so many things are done on men, not on women. And I am so happy that this is shifting, especially in training. More people and trainers and coaches are becoming aware of our female cycle and that we have to work with that. And I am so happy for that because this is the reason I even learned about that. And I really want you to have that. And I also base my coachings on that. We are gonna work with your female cycle because it is the game changer and it's the only way to keep yourself in shape easily. So again, we're not little men and we should not follow the plan, the training plan and the eating plan that a man has. We have to adapt it all to our individual body. This is just so important because if we don't, we're only gonna end up burned out and frustrated. So I also want to name you some big benefits of working with your cycle because even if you don't believe in God and if you don't believe in working in alliance with our nature's cycle, I want you to know that there's other benefits that you are gonna feel. So do it for the benefits at least. And a few of those benefits are you will have very reduced PMS symptoms to no PMS symptoms. PMS is before a period when you have mood swings, when you have cravings, when you really don't feel well, and you can reduce those symptoms up to having none when you work in alliance with your cycle, and this will make it so much easier for you to stay in shape. So if you're really suffering from PMS, from pre-menstrual depression and all of those things, it does not have to be that way. You can avoid that by working in alliance with your cycle. Also, you're going to be able to reduce period pain and period cramps. Because if you're somebody that has strong period pain, let me tell you, this is not normal. There are some conditions like endometriosis that cause this, but this is also not normal. This is an illness. And if you have no endometriosis or other things, but you still have strong period cramps and strong period pain, It is normalized in society, unfortunately, yes, but it is not normal. It is not normal to suffer from strong period pain, and I don't want you to think that you have to live with it, because you don't have to live with it. And if you don't believe it, I'm going to tell you about 2 clients of mine. Both of them, they were taking up to 3 pain pills per day for 3 days straight, because they had so much period pain, and they were increasing the dose of the pain medication because like the medication didn't work anymore and they needed something stronger every time. And when they started coaching with me, we started adapting how they trained, ate, and lived according to their cycle, the things that I'm going to tell you later. And both of them first reduced the medication, and in the end, they let go of the medication because they had no pain anymore. They went from having to take 3 painkillers per day to none. This is the power of working with your cycle, and it's a true game changer. Then another thing is that you get more daily energy, as I mentioned before. Then your fat loss will be so incredibly easy because you won't have those cravings, and you will not eat that much sugar, and especially not before your period. Then it will be easier for you to build muscle and to shape that body and have nice toned curves. This will come so much more easier to you when you work with your cycle. So you will have less effort with more results in your body. This is just the power of aligning your training with your cycle. If you're on the pill, that's another story. Then you have no real cycle. And because in the cycle, our energy goes up and down. And when you're taking the pill, your hormonal situation is down all the time. So it is like you're in your down phase the entire time. There are women that say they feel like kind of numb, and when they're off the pill, they start feeling emotions again. They start feeling like that they have energy, and then they see that they have been numb for all that time. So this is another topic, another big topic to cover, and there's not enough time to cover this, but the pill is actually the worst thing you can do to your body. If you're interested in more about this, I will link you down a book below. It's called The Period Repair Manual. I absolutely freaking love this book. This changed my life. And my cousin, for example, she was the one that recommended this book to me. She had been struggling with strong period pain her entire life. She was suffering. It was so strong that she could not even get out of bed for days. She read this book, she applied the things in this book, and she got rid of her period pain after more than 35 years. So just to show you what is possible, I will link you that link down the book down below, because it's just so good. But just to mention, the pill is not the best way. Then let's start with some practical tips. But before I give you those practical tips, I want to give you some key facts on your menstrual cycle, because you need to know that to also know whether you have a healthy cycle or not. You need to have information, and so many women don't know a lot about their cycle, and I was one of them. And if you don't know anything about your cycle, how can you work with your cycle? You need to be aware of how your body works, of how God created your body. So let me give you some key hacks, and then you can examine it in your body and see if it's working like that. Because if you don't fit into those numbers, if, for example, your cycle goes on for way too long or for way too short or anything, this is a sign that something is not healthy in your body. This is one of the superpowers, actually, of our cycle. Our cycle is our best health report. If our cycle is not normal, it's not running smoothly, then something else in our body is not working well. So this is like the best prevention, paying attention to your cycle. This shows you so many things, and this can show you so many diseases just early on. For me, for example, I had struggled a lot with my cycle, and it was very irregular. And I did a few tests. I did a stool analysis, and we found out that my body, my pancreas, is not producing enough enzymes to split my nutrients. This means protein, carbs, and fat is not properly split, and it goes like that into my colon, and this just messes up everything, and it's just not good for the body, because in the colon, in the gut, there's so much that can happen, and there's our entire immune system. So this can just lead to a lot of other diseases, and we found out that I didn't produce those enzymes. So I had to take enzymes for a while for my nutrients to be split. And after a time of taking those enzymes, my period starting being regular again. So this is how this is just so connected. I was having no other symptoms in my gut or in my stomach. I was having no bloating. So I really didn't notice that I wasn't producing any enzymes. But when I fixed this fixed my period. So this is one way and one of my experiences that I can tell you that your period is your health report. Now, let's move on to the facts. So the length of a female cycle is between 21 to 35 days. This length is normal. The average is 28 days. So if you're in this range, everything is good. Then the bleeding length, so the days that you're bleeding are in between 2 to 7 days. The average is 5 days, but if you're in between 2 to 7 days, this is normal. If you're bleeding too long or too short or in between, then you need to have a closer look at this. Then one thing that is very important and that you can start paying attention to as well is the blood loss, because you should be losing around 25 to 80 milliliters of blood. It's actually not as much. The average is about 50 milliliters. And 50 milliliters equals 10 fully soaked tampons. So that's how you can measure it. If you have, it depends also on which tampon, but if you have a normal tampon, it's 5 milliliter. If you have a plus size tampon, a big tampon, it's 10 milliliters that it soaks up. So this way you can measure how much blood you're losing. Then this is important for you to also keep tracking, because again, this is your health report, and then you see if there's something else going on. And I would like to touch on what you can improve if you're not inside those numbers, because there's actually so much about your cycle that I could tell you, but we would be sitting here until tomorrow. I might be doing another episode on those things like PCOS, endometriosis, and other things on like headache when you have your period. But I would have to do it in another episode. So if you want me to touch on those points, let me know and I will. But we're going to keep that a little bit shorter, and I just want you to be aware of that. Then you have your 3 cycle phases: the follicular phase, the ovulation phase, and the luteal phase. Some split the first phase in 2. They say the menstrual phase and then the follicular phase. I like to count it as 1, and the follicular phase is about 7 to 21 days. So it can be as short as 7 days, but as long as 21 days. It's very different for every person. Then the ovulation goes for 1 day, for 24 hours. And then the luteal phase, the phase after the ovulation, goes from 10 to 16 days. This is the length. So what this tells us is that the ovulation is not always in the middle of our cycle. It can be before or it can be after. So this is important for the next thing that I'm going to tell you. If you want to start living according to your cycle, training according to your cycle, eating according to your cycle, the first step I'm going to recommend you is to get yourself a period tracking app and get yourself a thermometer that tracks your temperature, because this way you will be able to accurately tell how your cycle is. So a period tracking app is a wonderful first step, but it just tracks like the average, and it will always track your ovulation in the middle of your cycle. But as it varies a lot, you could be ovulating before or you could be ovulating after, so it will not be very accurate. So that's why you get a thermometer. And I have a great thermometer that is connected to a period tracking app. So this is just perfect because it really shows me how my cycle is. There's a lot of other ways to measure a cycle. There's rings, there's other devices. I will link you a few down below. It really pays off to get you one of those devices. I love my thermometer, and yeah, I'm gonna give you all the links so you can start tracking it. And with the temperature, when you are ovulating, your temperature goes slightly up, a little bit less than 1 degree, but it goes slightly up. And this is when you know that you're ovulating. And then the temperature stays up until the first day of your cycle again. And this is very important because if you notice no temperature change until you have your period again, that means that you may not be ovulating, and then you would have to look more into that, because when you're not ovulating, you're not producing progesterone, which is a very important hormone for us. And yeah, then your hormones might be messed up a little. So now let's get into the different stages of the cycle, and I'm going to tell you how you can adapt your everyday life a little bit to that. So if you're listening, I want you to watch now, because I'm going to blend in a graphic so you can understand it better. And let's start. It starts off with the first phase, the follicular phase. And in the follicular phase, this starts with your first day of bleeding up until when you ovulate, when your temperature goes up, the phase where you can get pregnant. But you can also get pregnant a few days before, because the egg survives a few days, like 5 days before. And in this follicular phase, it really depends on how your period pain is. If you have a lot of period pain, then I would rather rest during the first days of your period. But from your average, from your third or fourth day of your period, you're gonna start getting more energy, and you can start planning things, start projects. This is the best time to really be productive in life, and also to meet up with friends, to just be there, because you're there, you are starting to get more energy. So get out there in this time. And then after the first phase, after the follicular phase, comes the ovulation. And in your ovulation, you have the peak in your energy. If you want to set up meetings, if you want to go on a date or whatever, do it in this phase, because you're shining, your hair is shining, you're feeling great, you're much more sociable, and this just makes interacting with people so much more smoothly, and also you will enjoy it more. So if you can, plan meetings with friends, or work meetings and community activities more around this time. Doesn't mean that you should meet nobody when you're weaker, but try to really like center your meetings around this time, around the follicular phase and around the ovulatory phase. And even if it's not always possible, because I'm aware that it's not always possible, at least you know why one day you have more energy and why in another phase you have less energy. And then after that comes the luteal phase. So in the first two phases, the body was getting ready for a pregnancy. It was using up all of this energy, and now it's going more in rest mode. Also, our hormones are switching. You're seeing in the graphic that our hormone estrogen, which makes us energized, which helps us build better muscle and so much more, it rises up, and then after the ovulation it falls, and then comes progesterone only if you ovulate, and this is more of our calming hormone. And this means that we enter a stage where it's time to slow down, where it's time to prioritize your self-care and listen to your body's needs. So if you feel like it, go for a walk alone, spend time with yourself, with God, go to a sauna, go to make your nails or whatever. Just take time for yourself and for what you feel that you need in that moment. Do some self-care in this time. And when you plan your everyday life more or less like this, again, I'm aware that it's not 100% possible, but as much as you can, then you will feel just so much more ease. And this is one of the reasons that it's so logical to me that men and women are not programmed to do the same. We're not programmed to work and hustle all the time, because our cycle is just not aligned like that. We're more of the caretakers, and we are made to have a more soft life in another terms and to not hustle all the time. And in a traditional relationship between a man and a woman, this works out beautifully most of the times. So that's the reason that I'm really not a fan of 50-50 and that men and women, they have to live equally, because it just doesn't work like that. So yeah, let's go on to the more easy parts to adapt, which is the eating and the training. Because again, it's not always possible to live in accordance and in alliance with your cycle. Because also some of you may be raising kids on your own, or maybe having other responsibilities, and which are not so easy to change from one day to another. I am totally aware of that. So just aim to adapt the lifestyle as good as you can and as much as you can to your cycle. And then the other 2 points, eating and training, are so much more easy, because this is something that you can plan, and no matter how busy your everyday life is, this is something that you definitely can plan around your cycle. So in the follicular phase, in the first phase, from starting from your period or 3 days after your period until you ovulate, you need to focus on having more of some nutrients. And I'm going to name you those nutrients. So I want to take you something to write and to take notes, because you're going to need it for later. And then you can Google later where you have the nutrients, which like foods contain those nutrients. And if you need a list with all of that, you can message me. I have a full document on nutrition and the female cycle that I'll be happy to send you. I have it for all my clients. I have it for my programs, because this is just so essential. And if you message me, I will send it to you. So take notes because what I'm gonna tell you is gold. Because whether you have cravings before and during your period, because so many of you crave more chocolate, you crave more junk food, more sweet during that time, and whether you will have those cravings depends on the things that you're eating in the first 2 phases. So if you eat more of certain things in the first 2 phases, you will not be having those cravings. This is an ultimate hack to lose fat easier. So first phase, follicular phase, eat protein rich because we are able to build muscle there. We need more protein. We should always be eating more protein rich, but there you can up your protein even more because this is when your body is really needing it a lot. And eat a lot of healthy fats. This is a key because if you don't have enough healthy fats in this first phase, you're gonna get the cravings before your period and during your period. So eat a lot of healthy fats. Also, eat more of magnesium-rich foods and foods rich in iron. Why rich in iron and why rich in magnesium? Rich in magnesium because magnesium reduces cramps as well. And in this phase, you may be having cramps, so magnesium is really a key. So eat more magnesium-rich foods. And then have iron-rich foods because you're losing blood, and with blood you're losing iron, so you need to restore that iron. Also, more foods that contain vitamin A because vitamin A is responsible for your liver, and your liver is responsible for your hormone function and for how your hormones are built, and that's why it's important to take vitamin A in that phase because your hormones are going crazy and it really helps regulate your hormones. And then also eat more probiotic food, which is very important for our gut health. Then in the ovulation phase, and this is why it's important to track your cycle with a thermometer so you know when exactly you're ovulating, you should be increasing your fiber-rich foods, whole grain fruits, legumes, and so on. Because if you're lacking fiber in this phase, then you will have the cravings in the later phases. Again, I told you, it really depends on the first 2 phases whether you're going to have a lot of sugar cravings or not. So if you want to avoid those cravings, eat fiber during your ovulation phase. Then we come to the luteal phase, and there what is the most important is what to avoid rather than what to eat. But one thing that I will recommend you to eat in that luteal phase, to eat more of, is foods rich of vitamin B, because vitamin B is in general very important for when you have more stress, when your body is more sensible to stress. So in this time, you're more sensible to stress, you need more time to relax, and you can help with vitamin B to relax the body more and to make the body more resistant to stress. So up your vitamin D. Also, omega-3 is important because this helps against inflammation, and it's really important to avoid inflammation in this time, because if you have inflammation in this time, this will lead to pain, this will lead to PMS, depression, and sugar cravings, and so many things. So we want to keep inflammation low, and omega-3 decreases inflammation. Then what is important to avoid in those phases is, first of all, alcohol. Alcohol is a no-go in that phase, and I've had phases where I've had events during that phase and I drank, but I did notice how bad I was feeling emotionally and with all of those things. So you really notice it. So you can drink alcohol, but then you will just know the consequences of that. It's really, sometimes it's interesting to observe if you're eating what you shouldn't be eating in that phase, then I take it like as a test to observe how I'm feeling, and I notice, okay, I'm not feeling that well, then I'll take it. Like if I'm invited somewhere and if I'm eating and if I'm thinking that I just want to enjoy those things, I will enjoy those things, but then I will not be surprised when I have more period pain, and I will just take it as it is and it is okay. But if you want to avoid it, the period pain, the cramps, the PMS, then avoid alcohol. Also, reduce sugar to a minimum during this phase because sugar is also inflammatory. And then there's two other things to reduce. It's red meat and dairy. Reduce those things, even though red meat is healthy, but red meat is also inflammatory and dairy is also inflammatory. So 1 week before my period, I would really reduce those things. Sometimes like even 2 weeks, depending on when your ovulation is, how long that last phase is. But at least 1 week before your period, I really would try to reduce dairy, reduce red meat, sugar, and alcohol. Of course, if I'm invited to eat steak, in that time I will go and eat my steak. I love my steak. But when I have the chance and when I'm eating at home, and I'm eating at home quite often, so when I have the chance to choose what I prepare, I would choose things that are not inflammatory. I love meat, I love red meat, and I eat a lot of red meat, but I really aim to not have red meat in this time when I am free to choose what I can cook, and I would rather cook some chicken or fish or whatever and reduce the red meat and also reduce the dairy to a minimum, and it really does make a difference. I notice it every time when I don't pay attention to that. When I eat red meat, when I eat dairy, I notice that I have more period pain. So really have fun with that, experiment with that. You don't have to be perfect, but you can play around with that a little and see how your body really feels differently. I had a client that she got so swollen every time before her period, like her throat got so incredibly swollen. And her example was actually crazy because sometimes it takes a little bit longer. It can take up to 3 months for your body to, or your cycle health to adapt and for you to reduce the cramps. But for her, it was just so fast. Her body reacted so fast. This was incredible. So she told me that she always got swollen before her period, that her throat got really, really swollen. And when we started our coaching, it was like 5 days before she got her period. And she knew that this time was around to come. So I told her to reduce dairy and to reduce meat and sugar and alcohol, and also to reduce stress as much as she can. She did that, and for the first time, she did not swell in her throat. So again, those things that I'm telling you, they're powerful. Our bodies just work so wonderfully. So try it out and watch how your body reacts. You will be astonished. All right, this was the part on eating. I hope you took your notes. And now on the training. Follicular phase, the first phase, from the third day of your period, it's the time to get stronger and to push hard in the gym. Me, when I don't have period cramps, I already start pushing hard in the gym from the first day that I get my period. And you can do this when you don't have those cramps, when you don't have this strong pain. And this comes back to you working in alignment with your cycle. So you may be able to work hard from the first day of your period if you manage to reduce your cramps by aligning the rest. But if not, if you're just starting out and if you do feel some period pain, you can take this time a bit more easy. And then from the third, fourth day of your cycle, you can start going hard in the gym. Focus on strength training. Focus on getting stronger in the gym, on improving, on getting better, because this is what gives us those toned, beautiful, feminine curves. Then comes the ovulation phase, and there you have the most energy. So you can really go hard in the gym. You can push hard, but there is one thing you need to pay attention to. In this time, you are extremely flexible. And the more flexible you are, the more also, or the higher the risk of injury, because if you do a bad movement and like you overstretch your legs, then you might have some injury there. So I would avoid cracking records. I would not use a weight that you have never used. You can still go hard in the gym, but there's other techniques to go hard in the gym without having to take a weight that you have never used. So break records in the follicular phase, but in the ovulation phase, go hard without taking too much weight. Or also avoid plyometrics, like things like doing jumps and so on, because you will be more flexible also in your joints. So if you land wrongly, then you can like injure your feet, for example. So also avoid those things like jumping in the ovulation phase. Other than that, you can push hard because you do have a lot of energy during your ovulation phase. What you are not good in the first phase, in the follicular phase, is stretching. Your body is not that flexible in that first phase. So if you love stretching, then do it more in the luteal phase, in the phase after your ovulation and before your period. And this is also good for you to know. If you have some stretching goals, then don't get mad when, like, after your period, after you got your period, you're not that flexible. Just be aware that it is because of our body, of how our body works, and because of our hormones. And use the time to stretch before you get your period. So in the luteal phase, after the ovulation, then you can stretch more, you will be more flexible. And in this time, take it easier with your training. Do not push hard. This doesn't mean you don't have to do strength training, but just do not push too hard. I would recommend you not going to failure with your strength training in this time, but you can train in a way that you are concentrated, that you feel your muscles, but that you finish a set and you could do 5 more reps, 3 to 5 more reps. So you're finishing a set and you could easily do more reps, but you don't, because you don't want to stress your body. But you want to feel your muscles, you still want to work your body, you want to work your core and all of those things. So you can still do that, but in a lighter way. You can just slow down with your training a bit. That's what I like to do. And I can tell you, and when the woman who did the seminar on the female cycle told us that that was her experience, I could not believe that, that this is true. She said that ever since she's adapted her training to her female cycle, she's never trained so little and had so much results and had so great results. She had so much better results, and she had never trained like so little in this time. Not little in the sense of not training, but she was adapting it to her cycle. So she had phases of 2 weeks where she was not pushing, and before she would be pushing all the time, doing all the effort, and she would not have those great results. And when I heard that, I could not believe it. But as I'm a curious person, I was like, I have to test this out for myself and to see if it works. And now I can tell you, I have never been so relaxed about my training and had so great results in the sense of like keeping my shape with ease. Nowadays, ever since I train in alliance with my cycle, I can just keep my shape without any effort. Like of course, it takes effort, you have to train, but much less effort than before. And before I would put in so much work and push all the time and just feel stuck. And now it just feels so incredibly light. So it is really something for you to try out. So it might seem controversial to not train really hard for 1 to 2 weeks, but actually this is going to help you have more energy in the weeks where it does matter, because your hormonal situation is made for building muscle in the follicular and in the ovulation phase. After that, you can still build muscle, but not as much. So if you push hard in the time where you should be resting more, you will not have enough energy in the time where you should be pushing more. So this is why it is so important to train in alliance with your cycle. And also I'm going to tell you one other secret. There is a very short time frame, and this is during ovulation, where you can build 10 times more muscle than usually, because your estrogen is so high, and estrogen is a building muscle, a building hormone. So when the estrogen is so high, the conditions for building muscle will just be so big, and this time is around your ovulation. That's why I'm saying push hard during this time, because your muscle building potential is the highest there. So use it there. Afterwards, it's not that high, and this is something that men don't have. Of course, they have hormonally a better muscle building potential, but they don't have this rise in having some day where they build muscle 10 times better muscle than on the other days. So use this as your superpower and really push hard in the gym in your follicular phase and in your ovulation phase. And after that, slow down a little bit. Do yourself that favor, and you will see your body do wonders. You will get in shape so much easier. You will feel so much more energized. Your mood will be so much better, and you will just feel more at ease and at peace. This is pure science. This is anatomy. This is how our body works. It does not only come from theory, from what I've learned and from what you can also research. It comes from experience on myself and experience on my clients, and they've had some great results with that. So those were the practical tips on how to live, train, and eat in alliance with your cycle. So what I want to say to finish off is that in a culture that often pushes women to act more like men, be different. Be different, because it won't make you more successful or more happy if you're pushing all the time. You should work hard and you should have discipline, of course, but there's times for everything and there's seasons for everything, and there's times when you can push more and there's times where it's more time to relax. And this is how our cycle works. So work with your cycle, work with your body, and do not work against your body. Reclaim your God-given cycle and honor God by embracing your femininity, because this is just something so beautiful. I really want us all to recognize that God made us women uniquely. He had a purpose with us, and this is why He created us that way. So the best way to honor Him and to make our life easier is to live according to our cycle, and just let go of the thought that we have to live like men to please society or to please others. In the Bible, it says in Genesis 1:27, in the first chapter, God created mankind in His own image. In the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them. He created us in His image, and He created male and female. He created us, each and one of us, with a different purpose. And it just makes your life easier living up to that purpose. Living up to God's standard. God created us the way He created us for a reason, for us to live in harmony and for us to just live happily and live in peace. So this was actually the message. So again, to summarize everything, when we embrace the unique design that God has given us women, we honor Him, we feel more aligned, and I have to look at my notes here, we thrive. We thrive not only physically, but also spiritually. This really makes us thrive in our femininity and just be happy, and this boosts your magnetism, this boosts your self-esteem, and this makes you appear more magnetic, more attractive, and just more aligned. So I hope you could take some practical advice on this episode. It was a lot, but if you start applying it, your life will change. So with that being said, I wish you a wonderful week, and I'll see you for next week's episode. Bye bye.